Which camera is that? That's the first one here?
The Sony, yeah. Yeah. And Gary will run that one.
Yeah.
We'll set the middle one in kind of a fixed wide shot, and then I'll run that end one.
Kind of a little more tight on the...
And we'll kind of try to get whoever is speaking at the moment, you know. And then Gary's going to have to do a two-camera edit on this.
He's got nothing else to do.
I know, he's looking forward to.
Doesn't bother me, yeah. Give me 4 or 5 cameras, I'll do it.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can hear it. Well, we need to put a mic on that one camera.
Yeah.
It's actually. What you be up to?
Oh, a little bit of winery work, and I do a volunteer thing Tuesday morning. I'm an interviewer for people that are looking for volunteer work. That's kind of fun.
Is that the OVA?
No, that's actually from the Sonoma County Volunteer Agency.
Really?
You know, I never really thought much. I mean, I think volunteering is wonderful and it's just great and all this stuff about it, but I never really thought much about it. When I went in there and said, I'm looking for something to do, and I got these skills so that I can do these.
Oh, Gary.
Oh, hi.
Hi, John.
Here is the draft of the personal service contract
Okay.
for the two of you. You
Okay.
want to mark them up and give them back to me if there's any
Super.
changes, and then we can get them back
Excellent,
up.
excellent. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Remember, I'm putting it in here.
Put mine in there, too.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
There you go.
what am I doing with this?
Oh,
How fast you can respond?
Yeah. We need, when he brings up each topic, we need a time.
When that starts?
When that starts.
Okay, and then how long it runs? Or just when it
No,
starts?
just, you know, the start
So
of
keep
each
this
thing.
running.
Mhm.
Keep this running,
Yeah.
and just make notes.
Right.
Gotcha.
You probably didn't see it, but the buzz I posted saying we're going to broadcast today, but this meeting probably won't be as interesting as the one that was going on with the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors.
Oh, what did it do then?
Well, Efren Korea
Oh, God, that
showed
guy.
up and,
Oh, you did?
yeah, yeah. And so, you know, they tend to telecast it.
Oh.
They broadcast live, just
Uh-huh.
like we do. And it's an interesting setup. They have the agenda, but they have the agenda right beside, and the video is much smaller. They
Yeah,
take up
yeah.
the whole page.
Mhm.
And they have commentary down below about which item is being talked about
Mm.
at the time. It's a much more elaborate.
Okay, so is the audio okay on this?
Well, that's what you ought to listen to and see what you think.
Okay, you guys gotta make some noise.
How about if I click this on?
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is Tuesday, August the 20th, September, November, December, 2013, 14, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not great.
No, could be louder.
Yeah.
That's 1,
1, 2, 3, 4.
So Gary, can I use your clipboard here for the timing?
You'll need to get an agenda, Barry.
Okay, write it right on.
Yeah,
that.
write it right on the agenda beside the item. And they skip around sometimes. That's
Oh, sure.
That's the problem.
Okay.
1, 2, 3,
Yeah,
4.
guys, just keep talking.
Okay. We'll keep talking.
1, 2, 1, 2.
We'll let them guys do the talking.
Yeah, it's fine.
Can you talk?
Yeah, it working fine. Okay. I think we'll just leave it where it was.
Testing 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Okay. So you just turn this all the way down.
1, 2, 3.
Crank it all the way.
All the way up. And then you can listen through here.
Okay.
And so you'll hear
Test
what's
1,
being
2,
broadcast.
1, 2, 3.
You want to make sure you
1,
have
2,
sound,
3.
that you're hearing
Gotcha.
the meeting over here.
Okay.
Otherwise, we got a big problem.
So you're gonna pick up the microphone sound
Test
through
1,
this,
2,
right? This
1,
mic.
2, 3. 1, 2,
You're not
3.
getting it directly from those mics.
great job. Came out. I did very much. Yeah, good show. Gary, just share with me.
But I do want to kind of organize several of us tying a few, to get started. Okay. Hey, Nick. Hi. That's what, they have decorations that some kind of yeah. Okay. Happy to have you. See you down at the corral. Yeah, right.
Fine, I'm going to meet you guys.
Yeah, okay, yeah, right. Yes. Okay. Hey, hi.
Hello, how are you?
Thanks for your...
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome.
How are you?
Jackie said it was working really well.
Good afternoon, everyone. After discussions at last month's board meeting, we had expected to start today's program with a special presentation by the Oakmont Golf Club. I had a discussion with Linda Frediani about activities that they have underway, and she said she would try and plan to have someone here with a full presentation. They've had some upset in their organization structure, and she let me know last night that the only person they felt that was able to be an effective spokesperson for them, Frank Giannini, a member of their board, is not able to be here today. So I'm sorry that we're not going to actually get to see a full picture of what all the equipment supplies are that are getting to show up on their property and how they're going to be used. But in light of the absence of Frank, we're going to have to wait until a future meeting to hear those details. And so I'll call the regular meeting to order. See that we have quorum, and so we need to adopt the agenda. I would like to start the discussion of that point by asking you to drop out 6A3, because the minutes of our special meeting on August 6th have not been completed, and so they're not included in the package for approval. Aside from that, are there any other changes that someone wants to propose in the agenda?
I'm sorry I didn't notice this before, but there is one slight error in the minutes of the board meeting of July 16th. Item 13C is indicated in the minutes to being a unanimous vote. It was not.
It certainly wasn't. We'll adopt the minutes with the correction. Are there any other changes? Secretary, do you have one?
Pardon?
Use the mic.
No, it was unanimous. I mean, this state was unanimous. It was not. It was passed by a majority. No, I don't care whether my vote.
not, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by John Felton, seconded by Herman Hess. All in favor? Thank you. Secretary, would you be the taskmaster, please? And John Felton, would you be the timekeeper for open member comment? Thank you. Now we have the members' open forum, and when I checked the microphone over there a minute ago, it was working. So we shouldn't have a problem when you're getting started. Please limit your remarks to less than 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Patty Amadeo. I live on Oak Creek Drive. Let me start by saying that I'm not going to make any judgments about the messages that are on the signages, the signs in Oakmont, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the numbers. I did what I call an informal survey today. The East Pool, there are 6 signs at the gate, 27 total. At the Central Pool, 6 on the gate, 24 total. The West gate was refreshing. There were only 3, but there were over 22 signs. The front office, or I like to call it the scenic corridor in Oakmont, had 5 signs. 3 of those signs pointed to a drop box that was immediately on the left of the door, and 2 indicated the opening and closing times of the office. As I said, I'm not going to talk about, because I really don't know, the validity or the need for each of the warnings or messages in the sign, but I would like the board to think about putting together an ad hoc committee that would review the signage, see if they could be aggregated, duplicates eliminated, and maybe put together in a little more aesthetically pleasing way. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll interrupt the start of the next speaker by going back and reminding everybody that we are being videotaped for this meeting. It's being broadcast online, and so beware, you'll be covered by the cameras unless you want to move out of range. Sorry about that oversight.
My name is William Biggs, Stone Creek Circle. My comment could be perceived as a precursor to the board's action relative to the new administrative structure planned for the central facility green. It is hoped that the concerns expressed will be given generous and serious consideration when the board members deliberate the issues at some time in the immediate future. The comments I have: 1. Does the current design abrogate the previous effort to upgrade the central facility, especially the physical fitness facility, so carefully thought through at the time of construction? 2, does the current design proposal possibly appear to be overly ambitious or overreaching? 3, is the current plan structure properly or adequately cited? 4, does the current design sensitively utilize the OVA green, put the structure meld more appropriately in with the Burger Auditorium entry upgrade? Last one, does the facility fall short of the reasonable expectations considering the concerns the membership might have? Thanks.
Thank you, William.
My name is Arthur Boot. I live at 6394 Meadow Ridge Drive, and I am the FIC, the Facilities Improvement Chairman. Since the new OVA board was formed in March, there have been some misunderstandings between the board and our committee. We were told 3 members of the board would attend our regular meeting on August 6th. At that meeting, Mr. John Felton read us his recommended proposal to be presented to the board at the August 20th meeting. I'll read a couple of comments from his proposal. Quote, despite all of your individual hard work, little, if anything, of substance has come forth from the committee as a whole. In reviewing the work of the FIC committee over the past 3 years, almost nothing has been offered to the board in a comprehensive, complete, timely manner. Because the FIC has not demonstrated the ability to support the board in a functional way, we have no choice but to reorganize the FIC and rewrite the FIC charter. End of quote. This is a rebuttal to Mr. Film's remarks. I have all the necessary documentation in reference to what we have accomplished over the past 30 months, which I will now present to the board. Unfortunately, rules and procedures are now being ignored by this board with excuse of expedience. The FIC followed these procedures consistently, even though we were aware that additional time would be required to do so. Regardless of the outcome of this debacle, I cannot, in all honesty, continue to work with some of the individuals on the board who have shown their disrespect through their insulting and ignorant comments to me and the committee. I wish to thank my committee for all their work and achievements. We have done what we felt was necessary. With that, I regretfully resign from the FIC.
Thank you for your feedback, and thank you for your service as chair.
I'm Nancy Caldwell, 316 Mountain Vista Court. I'm not sure you and all residents, I am sure, beg your pardon, all residents only want what is best for Oakmont. I'm concerned that that appears not to be what's happening. It appears that decisions are being made without much or no input on anybody but the board of directors. The West Rec situation is on hold for the moment, so I won't address it for long. The reason it's on hold is because a resident brought up the seismic issue and concerns before making changes. It's the most used building in Oakmont, and perhaps more important than a new OVA office. The new admin building is a case in point of decisions being made without input for residents or the FIC. Do we really have to have a new office? Somehow that decision to build became a, quote, emergency, instead of simply renegotiating the agreements with the Hunter Group and the OVA office landlord. Can we find a method to come to agreements that would let the residents feel they had a part in this large investment? Isn't it just an issue of timing? It also has impacted the West Rec issue. Are your minds made up and nothing can or will change? There's been a huge lack of transparency. When the CAC was being discussed, many groups were consulted and opinions collected. Because it was declared an emergency, the location was chosen by a committee who looked hard for a site, an architect chosen, and drawings done with very little or no input from the rest of us. The FIC was totally left out of the picture, even though the name alone would indicate it should or would be involved. Facilities Improvement Committee sounds like what it is envisioned, a facility improvement. Residents had no say in the building was to be designed, positioned on the grass area, or what was included inside. Maybe we do need a new admin office, but do we really need more meeting and conference room space if creativity is used with the current space? Is the design with so much hallway taking up space, an L shape, and the new meeting rooms the best design, since it also blocks light and view from the fitness center users? Collecting information initially from residents for such an important and potentially useful building would have been the best choice and gotten the residents into buy-into the ideas. Instead, the drawings were put out as a fait accompli with no comment box for residents to say if they liked the concepts or not. When the box was added by the FIC, not the board of directors, many comments were made. I hope the board of directors will tell us the consensus from those comments. The FIC has worked many hours on various issues in Oakmont, and there's a list of what's been done in the past 3 years if the residents want a copy. The board of directors was given a copy since the FIC was attacked by John Felton in a scathing letter at the last FIC meeting, saying the FIC did not communicate and did little, as you heard from the chair when he read the letter. I'm a relatively new member of the committee, but feel that perhaps if the FIC had been involved, his writing roughshod over the residents might not have happened. What's been done is shameful, and no implied emergency explains it all. Thank you.
Jody Darby, 6398 Stonebridge Road. I have two comments, which I will keep brief. My first comment regards the new OVA administration building. Please reconsider the decision that was made fairly quickly to place it so that it blocks light and view corridor from the fitness center. The fitness room is very important to the health of many of our residents here. If it's not such a welcoming place as it is now, will it receive the same use that it does now? My second comment regards more rumor control. There is word going around that the parking lot will be restriped with narrower, the compact car spaces. I invite you all to come out and look at the side of my car, which has many dings in it from doors being flung open from the side. Also, please look at the way people park. Not everybody here is accurate in the way they hit the parking spots. I urge you to resist narrowing the parking spots, parking lot. Thank you.
I just want to offer one comment for you, Jody. The restriping is not designed to add more compact spaces. It's designed to simply change the angle of parking from 45 degrees to 60 degrees. And by doing that, you accomplish one additional foot of parking space. And therefore, for every 10 parking spaces at 60 degrees, you can get 11 parking spaces. Or 10 at 45 degrees, you can get 11 at 60 degrees. And so the overall will accomplish additional spaces without narrowing the existing parking.
Okay, thank you for that. Please excuse me, brings up another question, and that is, are we compensated by the Gardens for serving as their employee parking lot?
We are not.
Just a comment.
An observation we're not unaware of. Thank you.
I'm Susan Lee. I live at 513 Deerfield Place. And I'm here today to find out more about the East Recreational Facility. Right now, there are no changing rooms. I understand there are going to be some recreated again. And then there's a problem with the bathroom, which I found most interesting because one man said to me, he said, "Oh, don't worry." He said, "We're men, we can just go in the bushes." So, but we women cannot do that. So I'm wanting to find out when they're going to start working on it and when we can have the facility back in order. It's a wonderful pool, by the way. It's a lap pool, and we all enjoy it, but I would like to know more about the time, the progress. Thank you.
Thank you. There's an item later on the agenda today, and I hope we'll answer your question.
Hi, my name is Peggy Dombeck. I'm at 426 Woodley Way. And I'm here to talk about the proposed administration building. I assume that you all intend the best for Oakmont. And maybe it is the best, but it doesn't feel that way to me. And I realize I have not come to any of these board meetings before, but I think that probably most of Oakmont has not. And I feel blindsided by the whole thing, that this seems to be a fait accompli without hardly knowing anything about it. I think it's a huge big deal to build a new building right between the Burger Center and the Central Activity Center. And I think it's something the entire community should be voting on, not a decision made by a small group of people, even if we elected you. Because I think a lot of people just are not even aware of it right now, probably. Everyone that I spoke to about this is totally against this building. I'd like to know more about why we need this building, about why we can't utilize the tremendous amount of empty space, rental space. It's got to be, I've heard comments that this building isn't going to cost us anything. I don't believe that. And I don't, even if the rental people want more money, it's got to be cheaper than building a new building. Also, if it is built, I just think that the location selected and the arrangement of the building is really bad. It will block the light and the view for people who are in the fitness center. It's going to look like a strip mall. It's just going to look like not a beautiful community, but a business commercial area. So what, if it has to be built, why can't it be turned around so that most of it is closer to the street and that it doesn't close off the fitness center? That would be one idea. Another idea would be if it would fit to put it in that green area along Oakmont Drive to the right of the Burger Center. But I would hope that it isn't built at all. So please listen to the people. I'd like to know more about the comments that you've received on this building and how many are for it, how many are against it. But even the way to comment, every time I went there in the beginning, it said comment box, but it had no paper. Oh. And that's it.
Thank you.
Noel Lyons of Hillsdale Drive, and I am here today as the secretary of the Oakmont Pickleball Club. Read a letter to the board. Over the last couple of months, the Oakmont Pickleball Club has had informal discussions with staff and board members regarding pickleball in Oakmont with regard to both the permanent facility and temporary accommodations on one or more tennis courts. Recently, the tennis club board has produced and publicized their concerns, so we'd like to address the issues they've raised. First, and most importantly, Oakmont's pickleball players have no desire to convert any tennis courts for pickleball. What we do want is to share one or two courts until we have our own facility. Regarding such a facility, we've investigated various areas and identified at least two possible locations near the central pool, both the existing shuffleboard area and the existing putting green and horseshoe pits. Either of those could accommodate two courts. Since existing committees seem to have their hands full with several large infrastructure projects, we urge the board to appoint an ad hoc committee to shepherd this project. We've received one fixed price bid for two courts that the committee can use as a starting point. Meanwhile, we'd like to address other issues the tennis club had raised. The tennis club asserts that adding additional lines to a court makes it unsuitable for tennis, ignoring the fact that courts in parks, schools, and elsewhere are commonly marked for tennis, volleyball, basketball, and other activities. These marks may make one court unusable for tournament play, but this seems like a reasonable accommodation for a new and fast-growing activity. Nonetheless, the OPC is willing to accept the restriction that only temporary marking be used, which would be removed when scheduled events require all 8 courts. The tennis club has suggested that we don't need courts here because we can continue to play at the Saddle Club. However, we play there as guests with a $5 daily guest fee, which means that regular players are looking at $300 to $500 a year to play, when Oakmont courts, which we help pay for, are sitting idle. Regarding noise, published test results indicate that while the sound of pickleball is different from tennis, it is no louder. The tennis club notes that tennis courts appeal to prospective buyers, but they overlook the additional appeal of courts for the fast-growing sport of pickleball. Finally, it is clear that there are many times of the day when most tennis courts are idle. The OPC would refrain from playing pickleball during scheduled club activities. The tennis club board's assertion that tennis players could not even abide... I'm in the last paragraph. Am I okay?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Could not abide pickleball ever being played when they're playing nearby seas extreme. Please find the Oakmont Pickleball Club's item-by-item comments to the OTC board's concerns attached. There is an attachment. I was going to bring you copies, but my printer stopped working, and also you've probably got enough paperwork in front of you anyway. So I will see that you get hard copies of the letter and its attachment sometime after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel.
My name is Richard Kalajian. I live at 328 Oakley Circle. And I'm a new member of the FIC. We moved to Oakmont last September and have been enjoying our new home on the East Coast. I decided to get involved as a volunteer, primarily because I admire our form of government here. Yes, we live in a county and city. However, we are unique because of our volunteerism, grassroots organizations, and very local control. We control our community through consensus, cooperation, and due diligence. Unlike the governments around us and to whom we all must answer, we have a more of a fiduciary responsibility because the money we spend is our money. Not money that belongs to faraway, baseless taxpayers. It is our money. We deliberate at the committee level, the grassroots level, and make recommendations to the board on the best use of our money. For my first few meetings of the FIC, I was impressed by the quality of people and questions asked. Levels of fiduciary responsibility and discernment. Discernment grown and cultivated from years of experience of projects past and with an eye on potential situation and future projects. That's why I completely support our chairman, Mr. Art Booth, and regret his decision. And I support the committee completely as currently constituted. Ironically, I was reading the President's Corner in the Oakmont News, and he was lauding the volunteers for their good work on many projects, and yes, congratulations to them all. And next to the President's Corner was a column announcing volunteer opportunities, long-range planning, landscape improvement, Oakmont emergency preparedness, and Oakmont volunteers helpers. If a motion of disillusionment does come forward, as it was stated by Mr. Felton in our last meeting, word will get around, as it does in a small community such as ours. People may become apprehensive about becoming a volunteer when, on the whim of a board, with no prior communication and unspecified charges, they can disband a committee with years of experience and knowledge. Unfortunately, we are living in a more and more complex time. We need to garner the support of our volunteers committees for their discernment and experience, and not concentrate more power and control in a few at the top. Do we want a community with more voices at the grassroots, or a top-heavy bureaucracy dictating orders from above? Thank you.
My name is Nick Beltrano. I live at 6961 Drive. My comments might serve as like a public service announcement. I'm a member of the 50th anniversary commemorative committee, and I wanted to bring to the attention of those in attendance and also take advantage of the video streaming for those who might see the board meeting on their computers or TVs. This whole commemorative event has been a cooperative effort of the Oakmont community, the commercial areas, the wineries, commercial entities, realtors, banks, etc. The OBA has taken the lead. OGC has offered its golf course. Oakmont Gardens has funded the community picnic. And what I'd like to do is encourage you all to attend the Parade of All Parades. It's going to happen on Saturday at 11 o'clock, Saturday the 7th at 11 o'clock. And I think you have seen the route in the Oakmont News. I encourage you to attend the free event after that, which is the Oakmont Community Picnic, and that's also called the Concert on the Green. Those are the Don Giovanni's. And that, again, has been a cooperative effort to celebrate our 50th year. Seating starts at 3 o'clock. The event is from 3 to 6. And both those events, of course, are free to the public, to Oakmont residents and their invited guests. So those are my words. As I said, a public service announcement. I encourage everyone to attend those two events. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Mary Ann Graham, 6459 Pine Valley Drive. I also would like to know how many people have sent letters and made comments about the building. I also believe that it's being built in the wrong place. We can do better than that. I thoroughly agree with Mr. Herman's comments that he made in the paper. And I would also like to comment on the Facilities Improvement Committee. They have worked so very, very hard in the last 4 years that I know of on the West Rep remodel. And they are extremely dedicated, hardworking people. And I just think it's a shame the comments that have been made about them and the fact that it is being constructed in this county. So please take the comments of the Oakmont residents to heart. And I just, back to the building of the OBA office building, I just feel like this is being pushed through without proper discussion at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry Galbraith, Oak Brook Court. I'm a member of the unproductive FIC committee, and as such, I was the member who went to the office, picked up the comment box, and put it with the drawings, since no member of this board did so. I don't know why, and I would like to ask you now, why didn't any of you put out this comment box for the residents? Do you have a response?
Obviously, it was an oversight and one that it was followed through on by the appointed coordinating team. And they have carefully tracked all of the cards' answers and summarized them, ensure that the members of that team have that information. I think Don Green, in line behind you, would be glad to answer it better, Jerry.
Good. Because that was my next question. Are we going to know the comments? Will we get a tally of the comments? Mr. Green.
Thank you. Don Green, 9217 Oak Trail Circle. I am on the committee working on the new community business center. Essentially with the same team that did the CAC for you. And I think you generally will agree we did a pretty good job on that facility. One of my tasks on the new committee is to collect all of the comments that you residents have put in the suggestion box. To date, there have been over 250 comments put in that box. I personally have collected them all, read every single one. Some of them are 1 or 2 words, some of them that are very lengthy letters. I have reviewed them, I have summarized them for the committee so they know, in essence, all of the complaints, suggestions, and comments that the community has made to our committee. We have reviewed and analyzed many of the comments and suggestions that you've made, such as staying right where we are, continue paying $40,000 a year, buy the beauty salon, rent an existing vacant facility in Oakmont, build elsewhere on our property. All of these various alternatives have been carefully reviewed and analyzed. And we have come now to the decision or recommendation with the building that was initially proposed. The first design is on display at the CAC. We have been working with your comments. We have slightly modified that building. It is slightly smaller in size. It has been relocated by quite a distance away from the fitness center, and we have reoriented the building to help the fitness club in their concerns about the view of the windows. As soon as we get the complete design finished, we will show you them again And we'll also have the landscape design, so you get the entire picture of what the new facility will look like. We are listening to your comments very carefully. I apologize when we ran out of paper, but a number of your comments were on various other pieces of paper, and they were all equally considered regardless of what you wrote on. So we'll keep after it, and we'll give you a nice building that you'll be very happy with. Thank you.
Wally Shelp, 252 Bellhaven Court. I'm here on behalf of the Oakmont Bocce Club. I want to read you a short one-pager from the Bocce Facilities Subcommittee. This is addressed to the Board of Directors. Last fall, the OBA manager met with the Bocce Club. The club expressed the need for courts to be repaired and resurfaced. After seeing firsthand the condition of the courts, the manager agreed to the need for restoration. She indicated the association would complete the work in the near future. After the first of the year and not hearing of any progress on the restoration, we attended the Facilities Improvement Committee meeting to inquire. The manager was in attendance and confirmed the work would be done in the next couple of months. Again, we heard of no progress, so we attended another FIC meeting where they instructed us to bring to the committee 3 proposals for restoration. After interviewing several contractors and visiting bocce sites, which they have completed, we obtained the 3 required proposals and submitted them to the committee. Each was different in how they would address the improvement. The proposals were reviewed by the FIC, who then requested that we prepare improvement specifications for the project and have the contractors resubmit bids based on our specifications. We complied, and again, the committee asked us to go back to the contractors and obtain references and other information from projects they had completed. Now, the committee has informed us they are preparing a further list of additional requirements they would need to approve the project. We have met with the association manager and attended 5 FIC meetings. We have been working on this for a year, and there is still no approval of the project. We have put a lot of time and effort into the project, and we feel that after our initial meeting with the manager for the association should have stepped up and performed the bidding and reference process that we have done. We had hoped the project would have been completed in the spring of 2013, but at this point we are not clear when or even if it will ever be done. Attached to this letter, you will find copies of our specification, bids from the contractors, drawing for the work to be completed. In addition, we have indicated our preferences for the selection of the contractor and service material. It should be noted that all contractors assured us that permits would not be required for anything in the scope of this project. We are asking that the association assume responsibility for the process and completion of the project. We stand ready to assist as needed. And I might add from personal experience.
Time is up, Wally.
Okay, this started 2 years ago, not 1 year ago.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention. We're glad to listen.
I'm Ron Holiday, and I live at 428 Kithian, and I'm here to represent the tennis club. And I'm not downing the bocce ball people that are here. Bocce is, or not bocce, but pickleball is an up-and-coming sport. And I have many friends that play pickleball in various states. One of the things that they have found out in these other pickleball courts is when you overlay a pickleball court on a tennis court, the tennis court players want to go someplace else. So they effectively have terminated the tennis applications that support these clubs that have pickleball overlays. I'm all for pickleball. Have them on separate courts. You were approved as a group to finance pickleball. Why take over courts that will detriment and contain tennis players from actively participating in a sport? How big is the pickleball club? 10 15, 20 players at this point in time? Who's going to change the height of the net from 36 inches at the center to 32 inches at the center? Who's going to pick up the markings? Who's going to change and do all the maintenance required to alter the tennis courts to pickleball courts and then revert them back? It's some maintenance group that's here in Oakmont that has to do that kind of work. And fortunately, right now, the tennis players play and join a club to play tennis. If you're a pickleball player, do you join the same pickleball court, or do you join and have your own court? The decision is up to the board, but by the same token, the board is also has authorized the pickleball club to have their own courts. Let's get them into the act. Playing at the courts over here is $5 per person per player. My wife goes over and plays bridge there at $12 now per visit. How about that? That's a little bit more expensive than pickleball play. How many people have gone to West College, to the courts over there, and asked management how their tennis attention and participation has taken place. You need to address the issues of participation at these different locations and then make a decision. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tom Connolly, and I live at 6441 Mesa Oak Circle. After hearing about the bridge, I'm in charge of the Saturday morning bridge that meets in the card room every Saturday at 9:30. So, and you can all play it. You play bridge for $1. And you may win some money too. You get a $3 table prize, and we have a slam prize for grand and small slams. So you come away a real winner. The reason I came up here is I read in our last Oakmont newspaper policy for committee appointments. And my question is to the board, do we already have a policy like this, or is this brand new? Or is this sort of a modification of a policy regarding the relationship between the OVA board and various committees? I don't know.
This was published in the Oakmont News because it's a proposed revision to existing policies and procedures.
So there is a policy in force already?
Yes.
Okay. Normally, when you change a policy, you put the original policy and you line out the parts that you're going to delete, and then you add the ones that you're going to put in there so people reading it will know it's a revision rather than brand new. I have a question about number 4. Appointees do not need to be members of the OVA, but non-members appointed to committees must be residents of Oakmont. Who would be a non-member?
Any renter.
A renter? Okay.
They're a resident, but they're not a member.
Well, would a resident be a member? If they're a renter, they would not be a member. If they were owner, they would be a member. Okay. If you were a corporate officer and you had your annual board meeting, who would vote? Stockholders? Or would you open it to customers of your product or service? To me, a renter is sort of like a customer. They don't have a financial interest in this organization. They're transitory. And I pay dues. They may or may not pay dues for the use of the facilities. They have the use of the facilities, but they're not here on board. I've been here 15 years, and I have a feeling from going by garages of tenants that are full of stuff that their cars have to park in the driveway, that they really don't have the same interest in the community. I know that's probably not an accurate statement, but that's sort of the feeling I get. I would sort of like to modify this point 4, where you've got to be an owner, pay dues in order to become a member of a committee. Especially, I'm on the FIC too. We've had problems. Okay, anyway. The next thing is, I think our policy...
Tom, your time is up.
Is it up entirely?
Time is up.
Okay, we need 3 bids on all projects. Thank you.
The reason that that document is published in the Oakmont News is to do just what you have done, to permit you to submit to us in writing your suggestion for changes. It is not adopted by the board at this point. It is only published so that the members can have their opportunity to provide input. But I think you're making some very wrong conclusions about people who are renters. We have many renters who are authorized by their owners to use facilities. And for that they pay dues. And many of them are very productive members of our association's volunteer corps. And I don't want to have anyone leave this room simply demeaning the fact that someone is a renter. We've had renters live here for 25 years and make continuous contributions, not only in paying the dues authorized by the owner, but making important contributions to the volunteer work of this community. Pardon me, Patricia.
I wanted to point out that the people who reside in the Oakmont Gardens, many of them who have been here for 10 or more years and are also productive members of the community, are by definition renters because of the way their household is set up, but they aren't introduced to your committee. And that is really why I believe the original documents were set the way they were, to include the Oakmont Gardens residents as part of the community.
Thank you. Eleanor?
Eleanor Rodnyansky, 7495 Oakmont Drive. This is not a contentious thing. This is, I'm helping Susan Millar with the decorations for the dinner dance on September 6th. And we sure could use some help putting together a bunch of things that we've decided to have on the tables. So if anybody is creative and would like to help us, I have put a sign-up sheet on the little table back there at the back of the room, and put your name and phone number and email address. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eleanor. Any more? Bob?
I'm Bob Adams, 6408 Meadow Creek Lane, and also a member of the FIC committee. And I just want to comment on what happened at our last FIC meeting. John Walker came in and told us his plan to redo the FIC committee. I was shocked. And when he further asked him to give us some ideas, why he didn't have time to discuss it, he said. He had the workshop to go to. So I asked him why, just quickly, in a nutshell, why dispose of the committee? And he said, because of leadership problems. I've been on the committee a little over 2 years, and I haven't ever sensed any leadership problems, except some infighting between a member of the board and Art. And that was 2 points of view. The work was getting done, at least from my viewpoint on the FIC committee, but we did have stumbling blocks because of this individual. But it worked out. Considering what Art did this morning, this afternoon, I would ask the board, if this thing comes to a motion to dissolve the FIC, that we get some explanation within the discussion of what our faults are. We don't know if it'll be repopulated, if any of us will go back on the board, or what's going to happen. But what are the faults of the way we've been operating? There's been no explanation. The other thing I wanted to comment on is the proposed office building. I was not at all pleased with the layout, the way it's laid out right now on the display, right up against the swimming pool cabana, with the entrance within 10 feet of the swimming pool entrance. Think about that a minute. We've got people running out, in and out of the gate with their bags. We've got people running in and out the front door with their paperwork. And it's just a bad place to put the entry to that wing of the building. And of course, I'm against the way it's laid up against the rec center also.
Thank you, Bob. I think one more, please, and we've got to get on with the business of the meeting.
Oh, good, because I'm the last member of the FIC committee to address the board. And my name is Tina Daly. I live at 165 Oak Shadow Drive. And I just want to say a few comments for the board on how this incident was handled between the presentation that Mr. Felton made at our meeting. I don't think it was handled correctly. It was not professional. It left us all with a very bad taste in our mouth. And the only other thing I want to say is just build a little bit on what Mr. Kalajian said. And basically what you have done is you've poked volunteerism in the eye. You've given us all a very sharp poke for coming forward and volunteering in the community. We all have done this to hopefully contribute and help out in the community. And we've come through with a very bad taste in our mouth and a sharp poke in the eye. Thank you.
Good. You want to get up to the microphone?
I'll stay right here, thank you. Mr. President, I'd like the floor if I could, but I don't know that we want to take any more time. You suggested I read this letter at the open forum, and so that's what I would like to do if I could.
I didn't suggest you read it. I suggested if you wanted to read it, you could do it.
All right, I want to read it. This is a letter that I sent to each board of directors a little over 3 weeks ago. It was an output of a question that John Taylor put to me as what I would do if I was king. I didn't answer him very well at the time. But these are my suggestions, or some suggestions to some of our dilemmas. And I would like to read this letter if I could. You fellow board members and residents of Oakmont. As some of you are aware, I have had increasing concerns about the directions we are taking in regard to the various projects involved with upgrading our facilities. I feel that we have made mistakes, some of which I personally feel were serious. In case any of you get the idea I'm pointing fingers, remember that I am as culpable as any in regard to these mistakes, as I can recall only once voting against any actions taken by this board or previous boards that have gotten us to this point. But I do feel we now have a dilemma, and I think this is shared by some other community members. Our agreement with the Hunter Group regarding the payment of in lieu fees for joining Oakmont has put us under what I feel is undue timeline pressure to develop plans for making use of those amounts of money or services due from the Hunter Group. This has not allowed us the time to consider alternate concepts and solutions. And in hindsight, there was no need to demand upfront payment of those fees. An agreement with them similar to that for the orchard would have worked just as well. We have gotten just as much money, only spread over a few years, and certainly would have relieved us of the time pressure we are currently under. Because of this above the situation, and because of my strongly held belief that our major function is the provision of recreational activities and facilities for our members, I have some suggestions to make. First, make an attempt to renegotiate the agreement with the Hunter Group that eliminates the need for upfront payment or in-kind service and instead substitutes an agreement similar to that in effect with Oakmont. Is this possible? I don't know, but I think they would be amenable to such a renegotiation, as it eliminates the need for them to consider how they will deal with the upfront payment and could give them a specific amount that they can build into their pricing structure for new homes. It would certainly relieve us of the need to make early decisions on how we were to use that upfront money or services and allow for a more considered look at the development needs of our facilities. Second, we should immediately plan on solving the housing needs and installation of the new switchgear equipment at the Central Complex. My suggestion would be to include this in a new structure to be built that would also house the pool equipment. This is presently on the plans over at the CAC. Housing the pool equipment, this is also a critical need. This might cost more than if we could incorporate it into some building, but it clearly separates a critical need, and the switchgear is a critical need from the not a critical need, but also a need of an office and or another community service building. Third, we need to concentrate many of our efforts on the decision regarding the West Rec facility. And I won't go into this paragraph because we are already have put a hold on the West Rec until we get the on any decision of the West Rec until we get the seismic study. Fourth, I think it is obvious from my comments at various times that I think placing the OVA business office anywhere at the Central Complex is a mistake. But I certainly recognize that in a long run that may be necessary. But I think we should consider all possible alternatives before making that final decision. In light of that, I would suggest that we return to a consideration of the vacant beauty parlor property. It is my impression that we rejected the possibility of meaningful negotiations for this property because we felt it might cost too much. But at the time we made that decision, we were thinking of a sum in the neighborhood of $700,000 to $750,000 for the cost of the new office structure. We are now looking at an estimate of around $1,100,000 for such a structure. And considering what we now know about escalating costs and other projects, we can count on a final cost of 10 to 20% above that. Consequently, negotiating for the beauty parlor building might now be feasible and should at least be investigated. Finally, in line of our responsibility to provide recreation activities for our members, I believe we should immediately start the process of converting the existing shuffleboard courts to 2 pickleball courts. This project in no way impinges on any of our other projects and does make better use of the limited amount of land the OVA owns. These suggestions make sense to me, but I recognize they may not make sense to others. They may or may not all be feasible. They may be accepted or rejected. They are my best shot at solutions for our facility needs and offered in good faith, recognizing that no one should be faulted for any previous decisions. But if changes are being made in our consideration for these projects, they do need to be made now. And I'd like to make one final comment. There are differences of opinion within this board about many things. As an example, in John Tater's article on August 15th.
You're really overdoing your time, Herb.
Pardon?
You're really overdoing your time for open forum talk.
All right.
Can you just finish up?
Yeah, just finish. Go ahead.
Can you just finish up?
Finish. There's no time for this. There's no time limit on this.
Like every other resident, there's a 3-minute time in the open forum, and he's taking advantage of that, even though he sits here as a director. And I don't believe that directors should get special treatment in that regard. And we've all had a chance to read his material in the paper as well. So I'd like to go on with the rest of the meeting. The next item on the agenda, item number 4A, is the President's comments. And I'd like to begin that with deferring to Bill Anderson, who is chairman of the Manager Search Committee, and ask Bill to report to the community on where that hardworking committee's efforts stand.
Thank you, John. This is the interim report, the first interim report of the OVA Manager Search Committee for the year 2013. And I know this meeting is already going on very long, but because this is our first interim report, I'd like to be sure that the board understands where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. Our committee had its first meeting on Monday, July 15th in Suite 9 in the OVA office building. Yesterday, August 19th, we had our 6th Monday afternoon business meeting. Our search committee started out with 8 members, but one, Stan Lindsay, regrettably had to drop out for personal reasons, leaving us with 7 ongoing members. Stan brought us the perspectives of a former municipal manager and was certainly a valued asset as we widened our search network. We solicited suggestions from the community and received valued input through our special email address. We posted the position on Craigslist, League of California Cities website, CCAM, which is the California Association of Community Managers website, and Adamant Incorporated website. Adamant is an association manager recruiter. Now, these postings have resulted in the receipt of 57 resumes to date that we have reviewed, plus others that were not really relevant. We have just retained Adamant to specifically find qualified large association manager prospects. We're accepting applications through August and probably beyond, and interesting resumes continue to come to us. The current 7-member committee is working diligently and daily as we review and rank resumes, interview by Skype video the candidates that we agree have the best resumes, develop and refine questions that we ask each candidate, schedule the interviews, communicate with candidates, do research, and discuss other recruiting possibilities. As of today, we have conducted 8 one-hour Skype video interviews of those candidates whose resumes passed our initial qualification test. We have 4 more scheduled this week, with 3 more possibilities in the offer. These interviews are held mainly when the candidate can be available, and have been held as early as 8 a.m. and as late as 6 p.m. Once these initial interviews are completed, we will spend time evaluating and ranking to see if we can agree on candidates as being the most qualified to manage Oakmont and eligible to be on our list of 4 to 6 for submission to you, the board. And let me say that I really feel privileged to be chair of this committee of outstanding volunteers who are freely committing their time and foregoing their normal activities in order to make this task their #1 priority. Those committee members are Brian Adams, Pat Amadeo, Kathleen Conley, Bob Giddings, Noel Lyons, and Mike Noble. I'm sure you recognize all of these names, people who are always willing to work for the benefit of Oakmont. Any questions, board?
Their work is on the subject of our executive session. Have any questions? Thank you.
Thanks very much.
The second thing in terms of the president's announcements is to comment on the fact that the manager has been searching for a replacement for our facilities maintenance manager and has had some success there. Tricia, do you want to bring the committee up to date on where that is?
We did a similar search, and we used a local headhunter, if you will, or HR person skilled at finding people for us, because we had gone out similar to the management search committee and had gotten a large basket of people and needed help narrowing it down. I went through, I think, 22 resumes of really qualified people, narrowed it down to 3 that I presented to the Personnel Committee. Each one of them I believe to be equally qualified to take over the responsibility of Facilities Maintenance Manager. As a result of those intense interviews and consultation with the Personnel Committee, I engaged a young man. His name is, oh gosh.
Mark Rogers.
Thank you, right out of my head. Mark Rogers, and he will actually start tomorrow. This is really a quick turnaround from the time that we made the decision to him starting, but I need some time to get him oriented as I, again, relinquish the responsibility of facilities manager, which is what I'm doing now along with my other tasks, and get him oriented so that when the new manager comes on, that at least the facilities maintenance manager will have some idea where the west facility is and where the east pond is and how to deal with the well and some of the other projects that are going. So he's starting tomorrow, but he does understand that we've done some background checks. We're checking every one of his credentials. We are asking him to submit all the same tests that all other employees must submit to, and he understands that there's in the next 6 weeks or 5 weeks, what I have left here, he has to pass all of those tests if he's to remain on board. I think you will find him very courteous, and I want to underline that, as well as very skilled and knowledgeable. He has plumbing, electrical, sheetrocking, carpentry, construction management. He understands the software. He knows how to report. He speaks well in front of people. He likes helping other people. He will be a good cross-trainer for the team.
The Personnel Committee was very pleased to be invited by the manager to join her in this second round of interviews, and we were pleased to have a chance to have a discussion with these potential hires. There is one aspect of Mr. Rogers' background which involves extensive construction management activity that was particularly appealing to those of us on the Personnel Committee who joined with Patricia in these interviews. His holding a contractor's license in the state of Washington was appealing from the point of view that there may be some reciprocal arrangements available in moving that contractor's license or adding California as a contractor. And with that kind of credential on for a member of the staff, it means that he could qualify to be a project manager for the kinds of projects that could fit in with the regular maintenance manager's responsibilities. So we'll put that in our offer to him, and we hope it works out the way we felt it would in the interview process. Next item on my report to you is that we've also asked the manager to put out a request for proposals for plaza project managers. At the board's special board meeting on August 6th, we approved the FIC and the Finance Committee's recommendation to fund the work on the project, inasmuch as the city had granted us a design review permit. We do have a few more days to wait for the actual building permit, but we wanted to move ahead with a request for project managers for supervising this important assignment. We have also asked the contractor what kind of a schedule we would have to work with so far as work on the plaza is concerned. And Mr. Hardy reports that it will take 3 days to do the demolition, about a week after that to do the grading of the site in front of the east entrance to the auditorium. The construction of underground electrical and piping will take a week and a half. The paving and the concrete work that goes with the design will take another 3 weeks. And then there is another 2 weeks after that for landscape work. So you can see we're looking at about a 9-week span of time, hopefully starting on the 10th of September to do the work out on the east front of the Berger Auditorium. You will be reading finally in the papers, I imagine, because the Press Democrat does a good job of promoting it, that they have advised us that the Best Senior Community Award for Sonoma County goes to the Oakmont community. And we'll have to draw straws as which director goes to the award ceremonies. There are 2 free tickets on the 10th of September. We now have the Secretary's summary of executive and special meetings. You can hear.
The board held executive session on Tuesday, July 16th, commencing at 3:15 p.m. President Taylor called the meeting to order at that time. Everybody was present, including myself and Commissioner Arnold. The board discussed and considered the status of 6 delinquent accounts previously referred to Pro Solutions for collection, and unanimously approved acceptance of the recommendations of Pro Solutions as to each account, except one which required input regarding a proposed settlement. Association manager.
Can you bring the mic closer to yourself?
Oh, okay. Association manager Arnold reported regarding 2 personnel matters, and the board provided her with direction as to those. President Taylor made an announcement regarding the ad hoc manager search committee, and the meeting adjourned at 3:55 p.m.
Thank you. And the other half of that announcement is that what I just mentioned a few moments ago, that the special meeting was for the purpose of approving the Burger Plaza project and approving in conjunction with that up to $18,000 for the project manager for seeing that it's done properly. Item 5 is ratification of actions taken outside the board meeting. There was an accident on the pathway past the tennis court at the West Recreation Center, which resulted in an emergency requirement to repair that asphalt. The manager immediately got a bid to have that work done for a total of $6,445. So I'd like a motion to affirm that action, please. Jim Kaiser, Herman Hess. All in favor? There was a second action taken which does not require a vote, but which I wanted to be sure was recorded because it can have...
John, excuse me. I have a comment with regard to the paving.
Thank you.
Okay. Having heard about the accident, I went down and walked the pathway and noted that the areas that are marked to be repaired, and I also noted that there are other areas that are unmarked that are almost as bad as the ones that are marked for repair. It looks like this work will be done in 2 phases. The first phase having to do with excavation of the certain areas that are very uneven surfaces and come back and put in the asphalt. The final phase of putting in a seal coat. Now, if the seal coat is such that it will cover up some of the things that are not marked for repair, that may be okay. But I'm concerned about spending $6,445 and maybe ending up with something that is not as good as we'd like to have it.
Do you have any comment?
Yeah, there's, unfortunately, that path is, as you already know with discussion about the west, is right at, actually it's inside the shoulder of the creek. Yeah. So it's illegal if you want to get technical about it. There's a limit of how much you can actually repair at a time without having to go to the city. And the areas that we mark are just under that limit. And unfortunately, I think the history of Oakmont's path is going to be that in order to keep that path there, you're going to have to do midnight repairs, as they call them, piece by piece by piece, and then every once in a while do an overflow seal. But to repair more than what you've got there will put you into another category and put you perhaps in the limelight or the radar of the city, and I don't think you want to do that. And the county, and the state, and the federal, and all the rest.
Is that based on a square footage?
Yes.
I think we're doing what we can. We're doing what we can at the moment. The other item on the agenda was to report to you that the executive committee that involves John Selton and Fran Diaz and Evelyn George has been working diligently to refine the details of the repairs that need to be made to the east shower and locker room. And they found that through a special order process, we could get tile that would match the tile work that does not have to be removed from either of those places. But the requirement was, because it's a special order, to get it in prior to this meeting so it can tie in with the repair work that actually has to be done without waiting for the tile, causing additional delay in getting those repairs done. And so for $4,014.56, we'll get all the tile that we need, and that was approved by the manager at the committee's request. Next, we have the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Moved by Evelyn, seconded by Fran. As amended.
I'd like to make one comment. We have on this consent calendar resignation of Yeppe Ewell from the Long Range Planning Committee. I think it should be done with our sincere thanks to him for several years of diligent work on that committee.
Thank you, Herm. I had some similar comments about we often pass items on the consent calendar without the appropriate recognition of what is taking place there. And through my oversight, we did it last month when we didn't recognize the tremendous effort that Pat Amadeo has made as chair of the Oakmont Community Development Committee. But the nice thing about that departure is she didn't do it without finding a pair of co-chairs that I'm sure will carry on in a similar fashion. So thank you, Pat, and thank you to the new chairs of that committee. But that likewise goes for Yeppe Ewell on this particular program. He did a very good job in invigorating that committee and expanding the scope of his activity, and did a good job in bringing onto that committee Tony Lakowitz, who's going to take over the chair's role and is part of the consent calendar today. And so we want to recognize Tony for taking on a big responsibility there. So thank you. So with that, we still need to approve the motion to accept the consent calendar. All in favor? Did I overlook any other recognition? Thank you. Treasurer's report is next.
And for the month of July, we had revenue of $167,000 with expenses of $154,000, which is 2% better than budget, leaving us a surplus for the month of almost $13,000. On a year-to-date basis, the revenue was $1,192,000 with expenses $1,039,000, 6% better than budget, leaving us a surplus for the year of $154,000. The transfers to the various funds were all equal to or better than budget, with the Orchard developer contributing $385,000 with the sale of 26 new homes so far this year. Cash and investments, operating funds $692,000, asset replacement $1,445,000, capital improvement $1,186,000, catastrophe $97,000 for a total cash of $3,419,000. Any questions from the board? Can I have a motion to accept the report?
Question?
Oh, yes.
Pardon me? It's a motion to accept rather than approve. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
I'd like to make one quick comment. You'll note that we have a surplus of $153,000 so far in the first 7 months of this year. I think that speaks well to our treasurer and our manager's management of our funds.
Next item on the agenda is the manager's report. Any comments on the report? Any questions? Your microphone, please.
I think you have the wrong date on it.
Yes, I did. If that's my only error on there, I'm grateful.
We also have scheduled today some, pardon me, I skipped the committee recommendation. We have recommendation from the Finance Committee regarding fitness center window shades. That's item 9A in your packet of materials. The fitness center approached the Facilities Improvement Committee, saying that members using the exercise machines facing the east windows are bothered by the morning sun. And the Facility Improvement Committee recommended the purchase of Mecco window shades, which are comparable to those used in the card room and in room B. And that expense of $2,200 was recommended by the Finance Committee. I find it interesting that in light of comments that the view is very important at the fitness center, that we now want to put shades on the windows.
So they can be lifted. Shades can be lifted when the sun changes.
We're out of order. Let's take with this.
Right.
I need a motion, if board members are so inclined, to authorize the purchase of Mecco window shades with $2,200 coming from the Capital Improvement Fund. Moved by John Felt, seconded by Herman Hess. All in favor? Record my vote is no. I can't deal with the incongruity of a few hours during certain months of the year that the sun shines in the windows for $2,200.
I'd like to make a comment. It's not true. The blinds can be changed. When the sun lifts, which is very quickly in the mornings, the blinds can be changed so that full view and sunlight into the fitness center. Thank you.
Item 9B on the calendar is the recommendation of the Facility Improvement Committee regarding the engineering and architectural construction services. And I would like to recommend to the board that that item be tabled for study at a workshop, because I have about 3 binders worth of material here that they have referred to us that I think before making this kind of long-term decision, we ought to have a chance to study. So I'm going to assemble that material so that each board member can have a chance to look through it prior to a work session in order to consider the content.
Mr. Chairman, just one question. I was under the initial impression that when we were looking at this particular item, that the people or persons that we chose for this would also be storing all of our drawings and everything electronically. Is that still, is that a good assumption, or is that, am I in error?
I sat in on 2 of the interviews that the FIC had with these people, and they were questioned about their ability to store that material electronically, and the answers were positive.
Okay.
Was that your question, too? So, any objection to tabling this for study? Thank you.
Would it be, would this stuff be available by our next workshop session, or do you think that it's too early? Or?
The material is available for each of us to look at, whether we have a chance to all look at it with the kind of work that we face doing manager selection interviews and so forth. I don't know whether the next workshop is the right schedule or not.
I think.
We now have item 10 on the agenda, which is an additional report. We follow the practice of having our committees, standing committees, make in-person types of reports so that we can have the personalities as well as the details for the entire community to hear on a periodic basis. And the first one on the schedule is Jack Abercrombie to tell us about the work of the OVA-OGC Ad Hoc Committee.
Thank you, John. Strange to be on this side of the table. Our committee was chartered at the December 18, 2012 board meeting, and we finally got organized and operational in the middle of May. I'll read you the members of our committee: myself, Andy Altman, Bev Harris, Alan McClintock, Bob Sorensen, Tom Woodrum, Linda Ferdiani, Nick Beltrano, Nona Leone, Bill Smith, Gene Turner, and John Wilson. Since the middle of May, we've been meeting every other week, and principally we've been covering topics about what is the history of the relationship of the OVA and the OGC. And it took some while for a lot of us to catch up on some of us who are longtime members of OVA and some of the new members in our community. And we've explored a lot of ideas on how to improve communications between these two organizations. Along the way, we're considering items such as opening up the golf course activities to non-members as well as members. Some of the suggestions for OGC action was to make the East Clubhouse available for OVA committee meetings, make the OGC website more readily and friendly available for all residents to access, special golf course lessons for non-OGC members. I conduct walking tours of the golf courses so people become more acquainted with the beauty of our golf courses. Provide invitations to OGC socials, focusing on selected neighborhoods. Offer free golf passes to new residents. Assign a board member as a liaison to the OVA board for improved communications. An acknowledgement that there is a need for OVA support of the OGC. Suggestions for OVA actions was support the OGC water issues with the city of Santa Rosa and other agencies. Excuse me. Provide assistance in sourcing additional water resources. OVA website should be modified to promote the beauty of our golf courses. Continue to support the memorandum of understanding that are currently in place. Assign a board member as a liaison to the OGC board of directors. And again, acknowledge that the OGC is a valuable community asset. In summary, both organizations need to acknowledge there is a need to be an improvement in the communication between them, and they need to take the necessary steps to do so. We have a draft resolution that we'd like to present to the OVA, in which we will also be presenting to the OGC board. It reads as follows. Whereas the Oakmont Village Association and the Oakmont Golf Club recognize the importance of each entity to the success of the other, and whereas both entities desire to formalize the mutual interest each has in the other, and whereas both entities desire to formalize the mutual interest each has in cooperating and working in unison on matters of concern and areas of mutual benefit, now, therefore be resolved that the Board of Directors of both entities pledge to work together to improve communication, cooperation, and relationship between the partners. As I mentioned to you earlier, Mr. Taylor, I'm presenting this resolution to you for your board to take into consideration. This report will also be presented to the OGC board on the 28th of this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Questions on the board?
Use the microphone.
Your microphone.
Would that resolution be considered a memo of understanding?
You would have to clarify that. It's merely a statement that we'd like to see this board and the OGC board both recognize the value one has to the other, to the entire community.
Okay, I think it would suffice as you presented. Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board? Any questions from members of the audience?
Jack, are you going to, is your committee going to continue? You have exactly.
Yes, at this stage, we're ready to put some meat on the suggestions and take those to each board for them to act on. We are not an acting committee, we're a recommendation.
Without objection, we'll put that resolution on the September 17th board meeting agenda. Thank you, Jack. Appreciate the work of getting that ad hoc committee underway. The second report in person this time is the Long Range Planning Committee and their new chair, Tony Lackett.
Hello, my name is Tony Lakowitz. I'm a resident of Bellhaven Place. And by my watch, I have been chairman of the Long Range Planning Committee for about 15 minutes now. And I'm here to give you the benefit of my extensive experience, background, and knowledge in all things long-range planning for Oakmont. The Long Range Planning Committee is composed of 9 members, some of whom are here today. I'd like to introduce Wendy Lalonde. Wendy, raise your hand. Larry Maniscalco. And John, I'm very happy that you recognized our past chairman, Gepe Ewell, who was a member of the committee for about 2.5 years, and, about 2 years of which he was our chairman. He did a very good job. We're sorry to see him go. The committee's primary purposes are, number one, to advise the OVA board of directors, and number 2, to research and prepare recommendations that will assist the OVA manager and the OVA board of directors in meeting the association's facility and staffing needs. The committee focuses on a rolling 10-year period with emphasis on the first 5 years. The purview of our committee includes facility utilization, long-range planning, and major upgrades and new construction for the association's existing owned and leased facilities, including buildings and grounds, the association's social, intellectual, cultural, and physical facilities and associated services, all undeveloped association property, and we do have some of that, and any new acquisition. Before I outline the things that we are currently doing, let me briefly summarize some of the work that our committee has been involved in the past. And I have to thank Carol Cotton for putting together an extensive list of projects that I worked on before I was a member of the committee. It includes helping to form the Oakmont Community Foundation. We were a team member in the creation of the Central Activity Complex remodel, and a list again which is too long to go through, but I would note that on the list, one of our accomplishments was to get padded chairs added to the Burger Center. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're comfortable and you like the chair you're sitting in, you can thank the Long Range Planning Committee for that, in part. Some of these topics that we studied in the past have become reality. Some are success stories and some are not. But here's what we are working on right now. We are working on a survey of all of our recreational facilities, which would include an inventory of existing recreation facilities that we now have here in Oakmont, an examination of the adequacy of these facilities, usage statistics where readily available, and recommendations for improvement. This would include suggestions for the following. What of our recreation facilities are the most popular? What facilities are underutilized? How effective are our existing facilities in meeting our needs? Can we identify emerging future recreational facilities and needs? And yes, this will include pickleball. And we will also examine some other senior communities in California and nearby that are similar to Oakmont to get some ideas of what they're doing. And maybe they could help us. We've also finished the solar energy study for all of Oakmont buildings, This has just been completed and was transferred to the Board of Directors a couple of weeks ago. We can talk about that at a future date. We are working with other committees to upgrade the Oakmont website, and Wendy over here is working on a demographic profile of our citizens. But our number one priority this year is to prepare a long-range plan for Oakmont. This would be a written policy document that will guide decision-making by Oakmont boards, committees, and residents in a coordinated manner. It would include chapters on services and facilities, circulation and transportation, safety, land use, open space and recreation, and finances. And we've just started this recently. And we'd also had a discussion where we would provide a vision statement for Oakmont that sets a goal for the kind of community that we want to be. I think if we have 100 people in a room, we'll probably get 100 different ideas of what the future Oakmont should look like and what it should be and what it should represent. But nevertheless, we will try to prepare that, and also a chapter entitled Challenges for the Future. And if you don't think that's going to be an issue to talk about and work on, we're going to need help, and we're going to try to get as much input from the community through a series of workshops and focus groups. We'll look for other committees to help us, and in the future, watch the Oakmont News where you can see how you can participate in what's coming up. Why do we need a long-range plan? Oakmont is becoming more and more complex place to live and to run. Consider the increasing pace of technological change and its influence on lifestyles and needs of Oakmont residents. In addition, the changing demographics of our residents as the baby boomers move in may change our emphasis on things, as will the increasing longevity of our population. Oakmont is not changing. It's not static. It is changing. We are all changing. The future of Oakmont will be different from what we experienced in the past. Think about having twice as many energetic and well-informed citizens standing at this line during the open forum, attending your board meetings, each with his or her own opinion on what to do and what not to do, and having to debate each issue on a case-by-case basis. Unfortunately, we may be slipping down that slope and getting ourselves into that scenario. But I feel that having such a plan would set forth in writing any major projects that we would be contemplating over the next 5 years or beyond, whether or not they actually occur. So at least we'll know in advance things like changing recreation patterns or a new administration building. A major project of that nature can be at least put down on a list. They may or may not happen, but at least there will be the element of surprise will be lost. Lastly, I wish to emphasize the need for widespread participation by the entire Oakmont community in the drawing up of the plan. This will involve different organizations as well as surveys, and in order to be successful, our plan must reflect the input of all interested citizens of Oakmont. I thank you for this opportunity to outline the work of the Long Range Planning Committee, and we look forward to working with you, with the board, and with all Oakmont committees and residents in the coming months. Thank you. Questions? Thank you. John.
Microphones.
John?
I should know better. I'd like to comment on a recent report that's come out of your committee. It's in the process, and that was the analysis of where Oakmont should, what we should do in the future with regard to solar energy. I read Jim Ouimet's report. It is very professional, outstanding piece of work.
Okay.
And
thank you.
if you pass along to him, at least for me, and I'm sure for the board, when they have a chance to look at this work. It's very impressive. Thank you.
I will do that. Thank you. Jim, when that was here, had to leave early, and we have thanked him, and of course he's available should you have any questions.
Should those of you in the audience not have heard of the work that they were doing on the solar, I have a copy of their 17-page report looking at the economics and the structural requirements, as well as all their appendices that show vendor reports and usage data. And Tony referred to the fact that sometimes they undertake something that doesn't get recommended. And this is an example of the kind of work that committees try to do when something really doesn't happen. And the summary says, solar electricity continues to slowly gain traction in Sonoma County. But our report concludes that at this time, there's a reasonable probability that the OBA would lose money if solar electricity were installed on our facility rooftops. Nevertheless, solar technology and the financial landscape for funding it continues to change. For this reason, we recommend that where possible, new OBA facilities have the roof structural support to accommodate solar panels to maintain the option of adding panels later when risks and costs decrease. I think that's a very helpful guideline, and it continues to mirror the same kind of study work that was done in 2006 that led to making sure that the Central Activity Center roof structure was built in a way that it could accommodate solar panels when, again, the industry changes. Thank you for that observation as well. Any other questions? We'll have you back in a few months, so don't be too long.
You know where to find me.
We now have new business items, and they're listed under item 12 because when I started putting the agenda together, I forgot there was a number 11. And the first item is facility open hours and a proposed increase. And I'd like to open that without a motion initially to provide background for the audience, as well as for a reminder for fellow directors. At our workshop on the 6th of this month, we had an extensive discussion of facility open hours and a lot of input from residents, as well as specific input from the fitness center. And as a result of that, I drew up this proposal that is in your packet for today. And it says, present opening and closing hours for pools, meeting rooms, and the fitness center are carefully integrated with our facility maintenance staff size and work schedule. The present schedule reflects 2 shifts that have a short overlap between 2 and 2:30 p.m. The fitness center board and individual fitness center members have made a strong case for early opening hours, perhaps as early as 4 or 5 a.m., and consideration of a later 10 p.m. closing. Occasional card and game activities like to go beyond closing time at 9 p.m. Individual pool users regularly support earlier opening times, particularly in the summer months. These requests reflect the direction of our community is going with the boomer generation influx and changing societal work and play schedules. Our present staff schedule permits carefully cleaning and sanitizing the fitness center after it closes between 9 and 11 p.m. so it's ready for opening the next day. This schedule then lets staff devote full attention to pool cleaning and chemical balancing when the next day shift open at 5:30 a.m. To keep Oakmont at the forefront of active retirement communities, we need to plan for extended and more flexible facility use regulations and commensurate maintenance staff coverage. As a first step, I recommend changing the fitness center opening hour to 5 a.m. The actual unlocking of the CAC is done electronically, and the earlier opening would have no immediate operating cost impact. It would, however, until staff schedules can be adjusted, mean the facility is open 30 minutes before the start time of our day shift. As a second step, I believe it makes sense to prepare for other early openings and later closings by providing needed staffing and adjusting the present shift schedules to assure we can adequately service residents' needs. To that, I recommend including in the 2014 budget preparation work the addition of one maintenance technician, position 1. Our manager says this would make it possible to run 2.5 shifts. In conclusion, I would entertain a motion to change the fitness center open hours effective September 3rd to 5 a.m.
But not to change the evening hours yet, right?
That's correct. But so if I can have a motion, then we can get have a motion and a second. So we have a motion to begin this process of expanding hours with the fitness center at 5 a.m. on September the 3rd. Discussion among members?
Yes, if I may.
Please.
Wish to make a correction. At the workshop, I came up with some dollar figures, and I must admit that I did not know that our doors open automatically and would not have required extra personnel for a time and a half. So I apologize for having incorrect information, and I now support the new program at hand.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Patricia. There will be times when we are open with the recreational facilities, when there will be no one in the staff on board. Does that raise a liability concern?
No.
Okay.
And very quickly, we would have it staffed. We've already started moving in that direction after the last workshop to set it up so that it would be possible to make that adjustment. But as far as liability is concerned, Oakmont is liable 24/7. So half an hour one way or the other doesn't change anything.
I would just like to comment, John, that I agree with you, which I don't always. I think that your summary of the situation is very good, because the one thing that concerned me about the 10 o'clock closing was the fact that we do have so much work to do in the late evening hours, and that I have thought that it would take additional staff, and I'm glad that this is being considered for next year. Thank you.
You're welcome. And this motion does not address the budget question. That's a separate activity for us to debate. No other comments? All in favor? So ordered. Item 12B is another response to the discussion at our workshop on August the 6th, and it involves the use of the East and the Burger facilities for large exercise and game groups. And the proposal that I drafted based on that input from residents is as follows. Dedicated group exercise facilities for large groups at the West Recreation Center are fully booked during appropriate time periods. Dedicated card and game room facilities for large groups in the CAC are also fully booked during appropriate time periods. When these dedicated spaces were established in 2009-2010, it was expected that they would fully meet our activity group's needs. At the same time, dedicated spaces would reduce the need for frequent staff setup and takedown work. This worked until use requests exceeded this available space. When the requirement for exercise and game groups to use the dedicated space was established, the board made one exception due to the size of the group. Line dancing was permitted to use the Burger Auditorium with very little setup required on Monday and Wednesday evenings. The request for exercise and game group activities regularly expected to involve more than 40 residents is cause for the board to consider additional exceptions to the dedicated use rules on an experimental basis. Staff believes there is substantial open time at the East Recreation Center during the day on Mondays and Tuesdays. They also report the Burger Auditorium has significant open time during the day on Mondays and Wednesdays. As a result, I propose we adopt new instructions for staff on a 6-month experimental basis beginning September the 9th. to first permit daytime reservations at the East Recreation Center on Monday and Tuesday for regular use by either approved exercise or game groups of 40 or more residents. Number 2, permit daytime reservations at the Berger Auditorium on Monday and Wednesday for regular use by approved exercise or game groups of 40 or more residents. And thirdly, to direct management to track the additional setup and takedown costs and to validate that the minimum group size is met by the reserving group. So do we have a motion to make these additional exceptions, and then we can have a discussion? Nobody likes the motion. Evelyn moves. John Felton seconds. Discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions. First of all, your first 2 paragraphs, you talk about appropriate time periods. And we define that. Is that in any of the open hours from 6 to 10, or what are we looking at for appropriate?
People don't like to exercise on Sunday, but there's vacant time on Sunday. So appropriate is intended to reflect the Oakmont style, that you do these kinds of things when it fits in to the activity schedule of a retired community.
Or someone doing a large card game or something likes to do it between 1 and 3, but can't do it at 10 o'clock in the morning, you're saying.
Yep.
Or do it at 4:30. That gives me a little concern. I mean, if you're really at, it seems to me if you really want to play a particular game or something like that, time of day, the space isn't available for your time, and you'll take what time is available. That's one way.
The same thing is true, Jim, as far as exercise groups are concerned. People seem to want to exercise in the morning. It doesn't fit their time frame, and so my language was just intended to reflect the fact that...
No, I understand that, and I tend to agree with you to a point, but whenever we start, you're talking about appropriate times, then we have this incongruency that you were just talking about a minute ago. They want to stay open later, but you're telling me they don't want to exercise later. Wait a minute, something's, So we have these diametrically opposed opinions being thrown at us in order to do something.
The only thought I had in that connection was we can experiment when spaces are in fact open, so it's only during the daytime, as I would recommend, and it's only for an experimental period to see how much additional cost you face in doing setups and takedowns.
No, and I agree, and I think that's the thing that makes it palatable, is the fact that it would be experimental, and we would collect that data. I would suggest, though, instead of a tool for us to track that data, was that whenever we have these classes, whether they're cards or exercise, that whoever's running keep a sign-in sheet. Right, that way, you got the people's names like that, and then the staff can pick that up, collect that.
Thank you for the suggestion. Other board questions?
My question was the same as Jim's. What is appropriate? Because, and I agree that we could adopt this on a 6-month experimental basis, but I think long range down the line, as we get more and more groups are going to have to start understanding that they may not always get optimum times, that there's going to have to be some flexibility within these groups, because we do have limited facilities, and consequently there's going to be limited time slots. And I just think that people need to be aware that our facilities are not unlimited, and that they may not always get the exact times that they want.
Why?
One thing you might keep in mind as you ponder this question, the way we operate at the moment, where, for instance, card players is limited to the CAC card room. We do have a problem with with CAC in that we have a lot of groups that are very small, playing tiddlywinks or what have you, that have been in business for 30 years at the exact same time. And it is very difficult to tell these small groups, you must change your day or your time of day, day of week, etc., because there are bigger groups that need to use the facilities. So I think you need to keep that in mind when you can open something like the E-Star here, the Burger, just a fireside group, or a large group that will aid in keeping the small groups still operative. But I think when you get around to a policy statement, you should really put something in there to the fact that all groups may not be able to retain their specific day and time because of the fact we are getting more and more requirements for new organizations. And the smaller you are, I hate to say it, but the smaller you are, the less chance you have of keeping your 20 or 30 year date and time. So if we can alleviate that by putting a group now and then into another facility, I think you really need to go forward with that.
Should we interpret your comments as being you're willing to be deputized to exercise this kind of decision making? Just a joke. Well, what's your pleasure so far as this proposal for an experiment?
I move in the manner of the proposal that you have presented to the board.
Seconded by Evelyn. All in favor?
I just want to make sure that we have the manager inform the people that do this that they have to have the time sheets or sign-in sheets, and that your people can collect that up for that data.
Thank you. I noted that.
Comment, please. I think the point is very well taken, Wally. But these smaller groups, we really can focus their time in some of our meeting rooms where they could do what they've been doing in the recreational facility. Because we have rooms here in the Burger and the meeting room at Central as well. And even the small meeting room at the East, not the entire facility. So they won't be sidelined. I think that we keep those in mind. We can make adjustments.
Thank you. Item 12C is the recommendation from the Finance Committee for a revised investment policy. Chuck, you want to comment on this for us, please?
Just a few comments. Very slight changes in the policy. If you look on page 58, the existing policy, and under safety, we've deleted the mention of money market funds as an available investment scenario. And the very last, under convenience, we've eliminated the specific mention of Merrill Lynch. On the first page, page 57, the revised, under safety, at the very end of that, we've added and protect liquidity. And at the very end, we've added a sentence, on a quarterly basis, the treasurer will report to the board the dollars, interest rates, length of CD terms, and FDIC coverage of the investments. And those are the only changes.
We have a motion to adopt the new investment policy, the revised. Moved by Herb Hess, seconded by Herman, that we adopt the revised investment policy as presented to us by the Finance Committee and just described by our treasurer. All in favor? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we go much further, we were discussing 12 Bravo. On pages 53 to, I think it's 56 in our packet. Was that part of Was that part of the discussion, or is it, is that 53?
That was some background information.
Oh, okay, it's not a separate proposed motion on its own.
I just wanted to have some background for
All right.
the discussion.
My apologies.
Item 12B is really an information item. In discussing with the manager our projections as far as maintenance activities were concerned, and our projection as far as demands on the asset replacement fund for the balance of this year, I asked the manager to prepare requests for quotes for doing the much delayed parking lot work at the West Recreation Center, in the hopes that when we get the seismic report back, we will get a clear avenue to proceeding with work that needs to be done there, and hopefully looking forward to a building that we can enjoy for many years. And so you have in your packet simply a copy of Patricia's work in putting out a request for proposals to do that parking lot work before the end of this year, to stripe and seal, R&R paving, Bay Area paving and grading, and C. Hardy construction. Do you have any comments or questions about that course of action? John?
When does the permit expire?
I believe it's November 1.
For your background, some of the work, particularly in the small parking area adjacent to the cabana, where the grade does not properly address accessibility requirements, had to have a city building permit. And we have had that building permit for some period of time. We've taken advantage of the privilege of extending it once. But if we could go ahead and use it this time, based on the information we get from the seismic report, this would put us in a position to do so.
A quick question: is this original permit was changing the grade slightly of the small little park project, wasn't it?
Yes, this is the one that we worked on some time ago. It radically changes the grade so that someone parking in that area will not have a curb step over it. They'll be able to get out of their car and roll without obstruction to the sidewalk. That change of the grade will make it possible to then change the sidewalk entrance to the lower gate to the pool, and we can reopen that pool gate so people coming from that side of the parking lot can go in through the pool through that gate, which would then, of course, have to be an automated gate.
So this background is the preparations, hopefully, that we can. But there will be a sizable contract to approve that over the date. Item 12E is the last of the new business items, and that is a proposal to consider an alternative method of preserving the life of the deck at the East Recreation Center. It's called a wood beam and post survey for epoxy injection. And I would defer to Herman Hess to elaborate on this, he having worked with Jim Hutton on discussing the $760 survey work that needs to be done by San Francisco Bay and Concrete.
Okay. Little background information. Back when the forensic report was issued, it was projected that the repairs for the East Rec deck, involving the structural members and the deck surface itself, would amount to something like $122,000. That caused Jim Cotton and I and Ben Albritton, both of those structural engineers graduating from Stanford, and they came up with the idea that we could have this new process which would involve fixing the existing structural beam in this manner. There would be a probing done with drills to determine the magnitude of destruction or deterioration, rather, of the beam as a result of dry rot and watering. That would be then followed by insertion of an epoxy material of various viscosities so that you would be ensured that you had complete penetration. The end result would be that you end up with a stronger beam than if it were brand new, and one that would last longer. And there is a cost benefit. The expected cost for the epoxy thing we think should be less than $25,000. You compare that to what the forensic report wanted was $98,050.82. And then there was another $22,000 by the forensic report for replacing the deck material, the board. Over here to the left of us on the easel are photographs of the various epoxy process at various stages of progression from beginning until finish. And I have a handout that I passed to all the board members. The cost, first off, is that we've got to do a survey because you cannot determine the extent of the damage within the wood by just looking at it on the surface. You've got to do probing with drilling and finding out how deep, how far does this go. And in order to do that survey, this firm is asking for $760, is it?
Yes.
$760 just to conduct the survey to then let us know what the entire cost would be for doing the repair using that method. Jim, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
So with that explanation, do I have a motion to authorize $760 to pay the San Francisco Bay and Concrete Repair to prepare this survey? Evelyn, move. John Felton, second. Discussion?
One question. Does this include is this just the structural members, or does this include the deck service also? I mean, in their proposal.
Maybe I didn't make it clear. This involves just the structural members. You've got to recognize that some of those are vertical and some are horizontal.
I think they propose another approach for the deck portion itself.
The deck itself, the deck surface is separate.
Yes.
Herm, what kind of warranty does this product come with?
What's the question?
What kind of warranty does this product come with?
I haven't seen an actual warranty, but he tells me that it will last a lot longer than just new wood. With regard to the deck boards that are in there now, to me, the deck boards look like they're in pretty good shape. But the problem is where they secured them with deck screws and nails, of which there are thousands. Each one should be reset, and that's going to be labor intensive.
Let's save that for another discussion.
Right. Just whenever, if we're going to go and address this for the survey, and I understand the need for the survey so they can identify what they're going to bid on, but I think when they do that, they'll also be providing us with all their engineering background to support this new process.
Yep.
Right? And they ought to be providing us also with the warranty issues, if there are, and stuff like that, whenever they give us the results of the survey. So that we have that one package all up front before we sit there and go any further.
I agree.
Let me ask Jim, do you think there's any problem with that?
No.
No.
But we'll count on, if the motion passes, we'll count on you and Jim to continue to follow up on those items. John?
Yeah, is the same process used later on the floor elements of the deck to address the splinters and such?
Separate subject.
That's an entirely different process.
Call for the question. All in favor? Motion passes. And the item 13 is for unfinished business. And the first item regarding the East Rec Center shower room repairs. The executive committee of John Felton, Evelyn George, and Fran Diaz has worked with the glass architects through all of the issues relative to accessibility that were in their analysis, and the relocation of shower heads in the accessible shower, and the ventilation problems. And so we're at the stage that we need to authorize glass based on those decisions to proceed with the construction drawings. A sum of $9,060 was part of their initial package, and that summary is reflected on page 74 of your packet. Do I have a motion to engage Glass Architects to follow up with their work on construction drawings for repairs at the East Rec Center for $9,060? Moved by Herm Hess, seconded by John Felton. Discussion?
I'm trying to locate on the paperwork. It noted somewhere that we would not be removing the toilets, but there is discussion, or has been at any rate, that they would all conform to a moderate ADA height and put in new rather than the old ones.
I measured the height of the commodes from the floor to the lift is 18 inches, so they may already be in compliance. The whole point is that we want to do this right, but we don't want to spend more money than we have to.
Thank you, John. I didn't know that you had done that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Jim?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, okay, for this $9,000 that we're getting ready to vote on. Now, at this point in time, we still have not really done any nails or any hard work at this point. This is just more paperwork and so forth like that, all right? And does this take care of all of our permits with the city?
My understanding is that the way it's being designed, we should be able to get an over-the-counter permit for this project rather than design review requirement. It does not cover the money that would be required for that over-the-counter permit.
Right, okay.
John, if I may, in talking with Charlie, the architect, he said that this is cited or filed as a repair.
No other questions? All in favor? Motion passed. I'd like to ask John Felton to describe the interim changes, since it's going to be at least 2 months before this work can be finished. John has tried to come up with a partial creative solution. Comment?
The partial creative solution is in place as of last night. We have purchased 2 portable change rooms. They're 4 foot square and tall enough for anybody here to fit in easily. There's a folding chair inside. One's marked men and one's marked women. And so now anyone using the East facility, if they choose to use those to change clothes, they don't have to ride home with wetsuit on the car seat or do something else. They're free to be used.
The last item under unfinished business involved further work on planning for the detailed design of the new building, the community and business center building. The coordinating committee chaired by Stan Hendrickson and participated in by Don Green and Pat Amadeo and Bob Giddings, is working on a number of things to make that detailed design something that they can go forward with in terms of bringing it back to the board before we go in for any design review applications. And an essential ingredient for that is the foundation landscaping around the building. particularly to make it attractive toward the fitness center windows. And we have asked Lori Caglin, who was the landscape architect for the plaza and for the master planning of the burger area, to give us 2 options for doing that landscape work. Option number 2 is the basic, in your packet, is the basic requirement in order to support the architect's application for a design review permit. And the cost for that planning plan, irrigation plan, and irrigation detail work would be $2,400. To develop a more extensive master plan for the Greensward area, she proposed a more extensive contract, which is shown as option number 1 in your board packet material. I'd like to ask for a motion to accept her contract for option number 2 in the amount of $2,400 to do the essential landscape design appropriate for the application for design review. Evelyn? Discussion? Pat?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. As Don said, we've been poring over the comments, and we've had a meeting with Mike Harris, and I think one of the things that would be really helpful in the public kind of really seeing what we had in mind is if a more extensive landscape plan could be done. We have, for those of you in the audience, suggested that we move the building over towards the burger 10 feet, making the space in between 33 feet from the edge of the fitness center wall to the edge of the new business center. That is 2 feet more than the distance between the fitness center where the ellipticals are and the other side of the CAC. But we'd also have done some other things in terms of changing around the conference room. But for residents to really get a sense of what you can do in a 33-foot space in terms of landscaping, full-size trees, uplighting. I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to see it, either agree or still disagree. But I think sometimes just seeing things a little more developed gives people a little better sense of what they're either supporting or opposing, or gee, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I don't know whether or not the foundation plan does that, nor do I have any idea what the cost differential is.
The option number 2 that we're looking at, I believe from talking with Lori, includes what you're describing.
Oh, great.
And included in that also is an expectation that Archeologics will give us an eastern elevation view of this change that we're talking about, which would include the landscaping perspective.
Right, because I think as soon as, and I'm hoping they do that on a rush, so as soon as people can see it, the better they'll have something to want to comment on. Thank you.
Other questions? Evelyn?
You quoted $2,400 to do this work, but I'm looking at a second picture and I'm a little confused because Lori is also talking about $4,400. Is that an extension or an expansion of the proposed work?
Looking at option 2.
Is there a number?
Up the upper right-hand corner, right?
Okay. So we're working on B as the first one, and these aren't numbered, distinctively enough for me to determine which.
Keep going, because they were late getting into your board package.
Yeah, I saw that the one that we're working on was number B. Is that the one with $2,400?
Looking at 13B, option 2.
Okay.
One more page.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So she's estimating that it would take 24 hours of design work to develop this. And the reason for going with Lori Kanklin on this is simply because of her involvement by a previous selection from the FIC and the LIC to do the design work for Berger. All in favor of the motion? Oh, excuse me. No?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment before you vote. Because if I understand correctly, you're letting a design contract for landscaping for a building whose site just moved and whose shape just moved, and it seems like it's premature. In fact, it seems it's premature to even have ArcLogic continuing on the $67,000 design thing. If you've changed the size of the site, you should be coming back with a new set of preliminary plans and getting a new round of comments from the audience. Otherwise, we're going to get this thing and you're going to say, well, sorry, the design's all done.
All in favor of the motion? You have another comment?
No, I'm going to vote vigorous no on this motion. I do not plan to vote in favor of anything to do with this central project until it is completely rethought. Thank you.
Mr. President, I have a motion. George, I don't have a second. Recorded. Who was the second?
Herb, yes? All in favor?
No, wait a minute.
Yeah, just a minute.
John, I have a question.
Go to the mic.
This just goes to the choosing of Ms. Cagwin for this project. And she was probably about $50,000 off on her estimate for the Berger Center, for the Plaza project here. That was her estimate. And then when we had it go out to bid, nobody could do it for that amount. So she was terribly low on her estimate of what it was going to cost. And so we could not pass this because you said, the board said, they couldn't pass this because it was so far over the estimate, and that we needed to maybe look at this again to see if we could get it down to the estimate. And it was Ms. Cagwin that gave us that estimate. So I would be very careful about those figures that she's giving you.
Well, I think there's some confusion here, Tina. I agree with you about her ability to estimate the cost of implementing a plan. This is not a proposal to give us costs on implementing. This is just her professional work to develop a landscaping design and the irrigation related to it.
But the board would not approve what it would actually cost to do this project because you had approved the $250,000 estimate that she had given. So I sort of have a problem with the figures that she brings forward and what it is actually going to get done at.
I think that's a good caution when it comes to estimating the cost of the landscaping work. This is just the design of the landscape that we're considering today.
I would like to table the motion until we have more information.
We have a motion on the floor, and if you want to make a motion to table, you can do that. But are you sure that you want to delay the central project over the discussion of a landscape project?
Yes.
Yes. I don't see that will delay the project. I just don't want to see the segment done until we really have a few more answers. And I don't.
What questions would you like answered?
Are we going to do it?
His motion's not debatable. I'll withdraw the motion to the table.
Mr. Chairman, just a slight rebuttal. I do respect Tina's observation. I was present when Lori Cagwin gave her estimate for the amount of money that would have been going forward for all of the burger and the plaza. However, in her defense, there were so many changes made to the construction design. I think it was substantiated by those changes when we had to go more. And ultimately, there was a question, and I think the question was appropriate when those dollars were increased. So that I'm saying in defense of Lori, because based on the simple design that was required in the very beginning, her figure was probably close to accurate.
Jim?
Yes, Chairman, for other members of the board, if you feel like you don't want to do this, then we're in the middle of a discussion round. When you call us a question, you just don't vote it, vote the action. Huh? Yeah, that's exactly how it works.
I'm sorry. One more comment from the audience.
I have
It's on.
Okay. I have a question on the motion. You're really confusing me. You have a new building or planned or plans to put it in a certain place, and there's a tremendous amount of objections that I've heard at various board meetings again today. And you have not decided yet whether you're going to go with it, even whether you're going to go with the building. You certainly haven't decided if you're going to put it in this place. And yet you're now voting on having someone put together some kind of a landscape plan which takes the new building into, you mentioned that they will make the plan based on the new building being moved another spot a little further away from the fitness center. So in other words, you're going ahead like you're going to go with that building and going to put it over here, regardless of all the objections. And why are you spending any kind of money on even somebody making plans for something until you decide what it's finally going to be? You're piecemealing, and basically you're spending only $2,000 here, $4,000 here. In the long run, you're going to be spending a lot more money. And if you make up your mind what you're going to do, and then do it all at once and get it done. But don't piecemeal it and go ahead with something, and then later on we say, well, you've got this $4,000 or $2,000 plan, which we don't even need because there's no building going to go there. It's going to go somewhere else. And you really totally confuse me. It's just common sense and business sense, and I don't understand.
Let me see if I can help with the confusion. At the last month's board meeting, the board approved Phase 3 of Archeologic's contract for the construction of a building that would provide the current office space that we're renting and would provide for meeting rooms in the current space that we are renting. And the board voted to approve that Phase 3, which includes as its first portion design detail prior to construction drawings. The design detail phase is intended to bring it to the design point that it can be submitted to the city for a design review approval. The coordinating committee that was appointed is doing that important design detail work with Archeologics. They have come up with some important adjustments, just like the coordination team did after the first phase of design for the Central Activity Center. And when the second phase of design was completed, we had a much clearer picture of what the final project would look like, and we got design approval for it. In this particular situation, the committee working on it has found that by sliding the profile, not changing it, but sliding the profile 10 feet toward the Burger Auditorium permits a wider opening between the Central Activity Center, Fitness Center rooms and the outside walls of the proposed new building. Could also provide a very favorable new entryway to the swimming pool to move swimming access away from the Burger Plaza. But in order to complete this kind of design to the point that the city would consider a design review application, it has to include landscaping. And so this simple $2,400 addition, which is part of the contingency funds that were indicated by Archeologics in their funding proposal to us, is an essential component of putting it together for appropriate community consideration as a second step and city approval as far as design review is concerned.
So are you looking to go ahead and get city approval, which means that you seem to approve of the new plan, which moves something 10 feet or whatever, yet this, there were cards and we made...
we really can't hear you if you don't use the microphone.
Okay. You had cards for people to look at what the plan looked like, and now you've made some changes, and people in general that I've heard and that I agree with, I don't think the building belongs there at all, whether it's 10 feet further this way or that way. I think it's a big mistake, and I think that's the general consensus of the people, the majority, at least that I've heard from, maybe those are the people that come out. But I think if you go ahead with this, then you must think pretty much that that's the way you want to go. Otherwise, why would you go to all the trouble of doing this and then go into the city, and then it comes back from the city, and then you're going to have to make some more things? It seems to me like it's a done deal as far as you're concerned.
Thank you. Any call for the question? All in favor of the motion to approve the contract for $2,400 to do the minimal landscape design work? Raise your hand. Randy? You're opposed. We have a 5-2 vote.
Please record my no vote.
Fran and Herb Herman voted no. Oh, I'm sorry, Jim. A 4-3 vote. Thank you. Are there future board meeting agenda items you want to recommend? Yes, the resolution.
Yeah, the resolution from Mr. Abercrombie.
There's also a resolution for interim expense approval on the part of the president and the treasurer in the manager's absence that we discussed at the workshop.
Yes, that'll be the next meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Any other suggested items? Next meeting agenda? Anything on the taskmaster list?
John. Do you only need to add the budget review at the workshop and/or board meeting? I mean, that's very simple.
Thank you.
We do have one task there, Mr. Chairman. That was for the manager to work with the office staff in order to put signatures in for these experiment that we're getting ready to run, collect that data, so that can be available to the board.
Mr. Chairman, what has happened with regard to the liaison? Have you appointed liaisons, or are we going to at least review the rewritten policy that I submitted to you?
Your input on that policy, along with what's been published in the Oakmont News, this issue and the next issue, will be on the agenda next month.
John?
Yes.
I have a quick question for Patricia. At the last LIC meeting, there was a request that Tim would attend the LIC meetings. Do you plan to pass that on to the new maintenance person?
Absolutely.
If there's enough budget information available by our workshop, it might be a good idea to start working on it at the workshop.
Thanks. What do you think that timing is, Chuck?
I intend to have the finance committee this Thursday approve the budget, or recommend the budget, to forward these, so certainly it'll be ready by the next workshop.
Okay. Thank you. I'll put that on that agenda.
How do you like your new elevated position?
We'll adjourn to executive session, where, as you saw from the posting, we're going to discuss the manager search, more details on the facility manager search, facility maintenance staff compensation, and then architectural enforcement and other collection-related matters. Meeting adjourned.